privilege to introduce to you our speaker today, Reverend Patty Vail. Reverend Patty hails from landlocked Wichita, Kansas. She joined the Navy the day after college graduation and spent the next 10 years of the Cold War in accounting and analysis on 2 ships in San Francisco and San Diego, with 3 years spent on Guam. During her spare time, she married Reverend Bob Vail and had 3 children. And Reverend Dr. Natalie, Army Major Elise, and soon to be Dr. Clay. Wow, what an accomplishment. Beautiful. In 1994, she completed an RN degree, and a few years later, she became a nurse case manager. Patty came to spiritualism after experiencing a haunting on Guam. She had horrible nightmares of a young U.S. Marine dying on the spot where their house was built in a World War II battlefield. She woke up, told him about her dream and what it meant, that the young man was stuck on the earth plane, not knowing he had passed. The dream stopped. She began talking to him and helped him find his parents, who had been waiting for him since 1943. After such dramatic contact with the other side, she began studying, first as a healing touch practitioner. When Harmony Grove began their institute, she and Bob were in the first class of ordained ministers, certified in healing and mediumship. Since then, Reverend Patty began serving in San Diego spiritualist churches, conducting worship and healing services and circles. She served on the church board for 2 terms and taught at Harmony Grove Spiritualist Association's Institute. She began accredited mediumship education circles in her home. She prefers mental mediumship, not trance. She specializes in past life readings, and we're so excited she's going to be doing a circle on that today after services. So let's welcome, please, Reverend Patty Vail.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Today, I had a lot of things I wanted to talk to you about, and there's only so much time, so I would like to talk to you, I gotta get this closer to me, about all the things that we need to be aware of in our own life and about ourselves and about what's going on around us. We are part of the same organism. You know, the Catholic Church would call it the body of Christ. The rest of us would call it just being part of God. We are all sons and daughters of God, a part of God, just as all of creation is. And this has, a great, wonderful gift that we have, our lives, but we also have responsibilities. And one of the responsibilities that we have is to learn to know ourselves. And beyond that is to learn to love ourselves. You know, Jesus said, love one another as you love yourself. And a lot of people skip over that and they think, well, I don't know, I'm not that worthy of love. And, well, if you don't love yourself, you really can't love other people. And so I think that most of us spend most of our lives trying to become that person that we can love, that we can respect, that we can honor, and that we know is worthy of the wonderful gifts that we've been given. And I think this is very, very, very important. When we're little kids, we don't have what we call a conscience yet, and so we learn by trial and error. And in fact, we learn by trial and error throughout our lives. So, you know, a little kid, we were just talking earlier, my grandson, he turns 1 month tomorrow, and he just learned that he has a voice, and he is using it. Almost constantly. He's very loud, I heard it myself. But, you know, when we're little, we don't know what things are gonna happen, and we experiment a lot, you know. So like if you see a vase on the table, you might just knock it over, you know, like a little cat, you know. And, oh, it smashes, you know. Or your friend says something you don't like, and you just push them, but they fall down and they get hurt. And you say to yourself, I didn't mean to break the vase, and I didn't mean to hurt my friend. And that is the lesson, and we learn. And then we think to ourselves, I'm not going to do that again. I'm going to be thoughtful. I'm going to be thoughtful. I'm going to think about what I do before I do it. I'm going to think about what I say before I do it. And you know what we kind of miss a lot of the time? Is we need to think before we think. Does that make sense? Because we need to be mindful. What we think about, we create. Because just like God, we are co-creators, and we don't know our own power. Most of us do not have any idea what kind of power we have. Just like we create a better human being in ourselves, we can create things in our life, we can create things in friends, we can create things in our family, we can create things in society by what we think, if we think the right thoughts. You know, right now, it seems to me that we're living in a time when a lot of people are thinking the wrong thoughts, and they're speaking those thoughts out loud. They're calling people names, they're being rude everywhere you go. I find it bewildering, and I'm sure that many of you do too. It's hard to believe how much our society has changed. I know, just for instance, growing up, there are certain words that were never used in our generation. And now you hear them sometimes every other word of a sentence, and it's disturbing. It's hard to keep your mind about you and follow what's going on, what they're trying to tell you, because it's just so different from how we were raised, and so different from what we were taught to believe. And along with that goes, which I think is part of, is good manners. And we were all taught good manners, you know, men open the door for women, you know, which is very kind, or men open the door for women or men that have a heavy load that they're carrying, or women open the door for the man who's pushing the wheelchair, or whatever. I mean, these are things that we learn that are important. I mean, the Boy Scouts used to, you know, try to find an old lady to help across the sidewalk, you know, go help across the street. And this sort of thing. But, you know, good manners go even further than that. I think that people, you come up to people and you greet them, or they greet you, and they say, good morning, how are you? And if you're having a bad day, don't pass it on, you know. Oh, I'm fine, you know. The weather's really nice today. We all know how to be polite. We all know the conventional things we should say to people. If you see someone you know, and they say, hi, how are you? And you say, oh, I'm fine, how are you? Don't run off. Listen to what they say to you. You know, because people today, reality is really being challenged a lot today. Reality is actually changing a lot today. The earth is changing, and it's changing our reality. Time seems to be going super, super, super fast. I mean, you can start something and think, I'm going to spend 15 minutes on this, and then 8 hours later you go, oh my God, where did the day go? You know. And on the other hand, sometimes it seems to go so slow that you think, oh my, when will this day ever end? When will it ever end? And this is confusing. This time thing is confusing. What's the truth going on around us is confusing. And sometimes we even begin to wonder, am I real? And, you know, is any of this real? Is this just a dream? It's like the Matrix, It's sort of like some people compare life to the Matrix. I think it's a lot more than that. But we come along the street, we see a homeless person. Please, if you can, make eye contact. If you can make eye contact, tell them, God bless you. People that are homeless so often, no one even speaks to them. No one looks at them. You can understand how, after years of that, you lose track of who you are. You lose track of who you might have been. I think that when we see people and we feel pity for them, it's not the right emotion. Feel compassion. Feel empathy, if you can. Try to imagine what it would be like if you had a life with so little opportunities that you never reached your potential. So when I say don't pity them, I mean, when we pity them, we see the lack in them. We don't see the potential. The potential that's still there, the potential they might achieve if they're just recognized, if people help them. You see miracle stories all the time about people that are born in abject poverty. I mean, horrible situations. Parents that don't raise them, they raise themselves. There may be siblings that they're raising too. As a child, no childhood. And then, that a lot of our homeless people today, they're veterans. And, being a veteran myself and being married to a veteran, coming from a military family, I think a lot of people join up in the military because they lack basic self-control. They don't really know how to control themselves. And they think, if I join the military, they'll teach me how to control myself. That may be true. On the other hand, it may be true that you learn how to use a weapon. So a lot of it depends on where you're coming from in your mind. And that's why thoughtfulness and mindfulness is so important. Excuse me. I'm sure you've all heard that thoughts are things. That's a current expression that we hear a lot. And it really is true, because even if you're not aware of it, when you're thinking, it's broadcasting. How do we as spiritualists communicate with spirit? Do they speak out loud to us? Do we speak out loud to them? Well, sometimes we do. Especially when we're invoking and asking them to come in and pray with us and be with us and help us. But a lot of the time that communication is just in our minds. We're just sending it out there and we're receiving back. I think a lot of the problem in modern society, especially in America, is that, we have innumerable chakras, but we actually recognize about 7 of them. And, first we've got the root chakra, that's, all about holding on to life, being glad you're in life, wanting to live, wanting to continue. And then we have our emotions, and then we come to the solar plexus. If we haven't worked through our emotions, the solar plexus is going to be where we hang out. And that is basically a problem, because we're always in our heads. We're always in our heads. And what we really need to do is we need to combine our heart and our head, because only then are we really in the mode in which we need to be that creator, to be that person who is creating not only their own life, but helping other people create their lives and helping society to create safety nets. We see right now that safety nets are going away, and a lot of people are very afraid. We live in a border town. There are a lot of people who are extremely afraid, and they have a good reason to be. People being pulled over on the street because somebody doesn't like the color of their skin. I mean, this is unbelievable. We have to fight that fear, and we have to help other people fight that fear. And the only way we can do that is to combine our heart with our mind, so that we know that there is love. There is plenty of love out there. There's love everywhere. It's all around us. It's inside us. And we have to be able to share that. We need to be able to let that out. We need to be able to overcome our fears. I know it's sometimes it's hard. I mean, my husband and I were both, retired military officers, and we have every single dime that comes into our house comes from the federal government. So sometimes we think about that, and we think, oh, well, let's hope that things continue, that we still have a nation, and that we still have each other, and that we still care about each other. But everywhere we look, we see people who don't care anymore. They're only caring about themselves. We see that expression that we all learned as children: greed is the mother. I'm trying to get this right. Money is the root of all evil, and greed is the cause of the desire for money. And we see this greed everywhere. I've got mine. I don't care if you ever get yours. In fact, I don't want you to have yours because I want to have mine. I want to have mine. And we can't think that way. Every one of us is entitled to our own God-given life. We don't have the right to take other people's lives. We don't have the right to take their livelihood. We don't have the right to take their security, their food security. I mean, to me, it's very, very hard to understand how we could go from a nation of caring for other people, of recognizing their worth. We went through the turbulence of the 60s just to get to the point that we should have been 250 years ago when our nation was founded, but we still had slaves. And I can't even imagine how people thought that was okay to own another human being. But I heard on the news yesterday that in the Middle East, they have marketplaces where they sell people. They used to do that in the United States. Not that long ago. Less than 100 years before most of us in here were born. They were still selling people in the marketplace. Each of us has to see the God in other people, because God is there. Love is there. It might be hidden under layers of anguish and pain that is built up over years, but it is still there. And it's waiting for somebody to recognize it, someone to see the humanity, someone to see the godness, someone to see the divinity, the wisdom, the experiences that they have lived through. And I think this is just so important. I talked, last time I was here, I talked about a lot of things that we could do to just help out in society. And I thought, well, I'm going to talk to you about some of the things that I've done and that you could do if you wanted to. There's just so much need now because the government does very little compared to what it used to do for us. And that doesn't mean that people don't have those needs anymore. So I have some recommendations, and take them for whatever you find in them. If you have financial security and you can afford to, you can donate to, say for instance, the Jacobs Cushman Food Bank. Bob and I do that. They're always looking for volunteers. If you don't have money but you have time, they're always looking for people to help out, because that's a huge operation. I don't know if you've all been there, but it's enormous. They've got enormous warehouse, and they have trucks coming and going every few seconds, and all this food being offloaded and loaded back onto trucks to go out into the communities to distribute the food. This is really important. I remember one time I was in Kansas and this little girl said, "Mommy, can we have oranges today?" And her mom looked at her purse and she said, "No, honey, I'm sorry, we don't have any money for oranges." And I was in such shock that they were gone from the store before I came to and thought, I had $5. Why didn't I just hand it to her, or just hand it to her daughter or something? You don't want to take people's dignity away from them by helping them. But I thought that was heartbreaking. We can't afford oranges today. I can't, obviously I have never starved a day in my life, but so it's not true of some people. I was a school nurse, and a lot of our kids came to school and they had had no breakfast and they didn't bring a lunch because nobody packed one for them. And that was tragic. And it goes on all across our nation, and a lot of it goes on here in San Diego. Children who don't have enough to eat. And so when we started the school lunch program and the school breakfast program, it was fantastic. It was God in action. It was feeding these little children so their brains could work during the day and they could learn, And then people are trying to take that away everywhere we look. And the state is trying to make up for that, but they can't do everything. So if you want to make a contribution, Jacobs Cushman has a school lunch program that you can donate to or you can help with. I don't want to just harp on them, but that's just something that occurs to me as a parent and a grandparent, and having been a nurse working in the poorest schools in San Diego. It's a tragedy that we let children go hungry. So, but we can do things about that. We really can. The Red Cross teaches all sorts of classes. They teach childcare, babysitting. They teach nutrition classes. They teach CPR. All sorts of classes. And if you want, you can volunteer to become an instructor. If you have a particular desire for something that they're doing. I mean, I've done it. I taught babysitting for years. Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, Boys and Girls Clubs, they always need volunteers. I was a Girl Scout for 24 years, 13 of them as an adult. And I can tell you, we are a village. We have to raise each other's children, and each other's grandchildren, because nobody can do it on their own anymore. Families can't be single parents and get by. They have to move back in with mom and dad, or they have to, there's something, both parents have to work. And what does that leave for the children? My daughter, who's in Texas right now, finds that daycare is pretty affordable down there. She has 3 children, and she's moving to Colorado Springs in June. And they've told her that it's going to be $5,000 a month per child for daycare. And 2 of them are in school, and it's only 2 hours a day. And so the YMCA, the YWCA, they sponsor after-school programs. They always need help. I mean, if they take the kids on a field trip, they need somebody to walk along the side, make sure the kids aren't stepping into the street or out of the crosswalk lines, things like that. They need help with all sorts of things. Hospitals. You can be a gray or a pink volunteer. I don't want to say pink lady, but I mean, it used to be, it was us mothers who were, once our kids got in school, we went and did some work in the nursing homes or the hospitals. And that is so important. I was hospitalized for more than a week last fall. And I didn't really need the support, but they were there anyway. They came in It was Christmas time, they brought us gifts, backpacks loaded with toiletries and things like that, and candy bars. So, I mean, it's just, it brings your spirits up when somebody acknowledges you. And so that's another area that, you know, my God, time's up? Okay, well, I could go on because there's all sorts of volunteering opportunities, but there's just praying for people. If that's what you can do, that, you know, that's a fantastic gift to pray for people and to wish them the best. And so God bless all of you.